Hi, my name is Andreas Andersson, a fly tyer from Sweden, and I specialize in predator flies. A lot of my flies include the use of deer hair. What I have here is just a basic tail and body. It's going to be a streamer. We're going to put a deer hair head up here. So this is just a rabbit strip, some polymers in it, just to have some kind of body on there. It's not the fly in itself that it's important. I just want to show you a very simple technique how to put a deer hair head on a fly, so you can try for yourself, and you can use this technique in a lot of various other patterns and get good results. That's going to fish well and going to be durable, so you can use it for hopefully plenty of huge trout. So, since this thread that we're using, it's one of those very modern Dyneema GSP style threads. It's a 150 denier thread, so pretty thick, and that's good because it allows you to put a lot of thread pressure on the hairs without the thread cutting through the hair as you're applying pressure. That is important because you want to apply a lot of pressure to make sure you really cinch down on those hairs and put them exactly where you want them. But these modern threads are also very slippery, so what I will do is just place a small drop of super glue where I will be attaching the thread. And this is just going to be a pretty simple, nice little fly, and the head on this type of fly doesn't have to be super tight. I guess if some of you have seen me tie flies on other videos or Instagram or whatever, you see me doing this super tight deer hair flies at times. That is not always necessary. If you're looking for a profile, as in this case where we're going to be making some kind of sculpin looking thing with just a broad profile, it's not necessarily important at all to do a tight head. That's very useful for other applications, which we will get to later in this series of videos. So first we're going to start simple. So we attach the thread, make sure it's really stuck on there. I'm going to get a piece of deer hair. This in particular is body hair. We will be looking into various types of hair as we go along in this series of tying videos. So this is just a nice brown body hair. I'm going to use my scissor to just get a clump of hair and raise them up. Grab a hold tightly with my fingers and with the scissors, and it really helps if you have a long cutting edge on the scissor. So if you can find something with a longer cutting edge, it's going to be a lot easier than a smaller one. So use your large scissors, if you have any, and try and press the bottom of the scissors down into the skin where the hair is attached. That way you will get all of the hair, and it will be a lot easier to work with a longer piece of hair as you go along. So something like that. Make sure you got a really good hold on those tips. What I usually do first is just flick them a bit like that. And what I'm looking to do here is clean out some of those shorter fibers and also those under fur fibers that can be present in some deer hair, depending on which time of year it was harvested. And I finish it off with a comb. You can probably see some of the really fussy stuff. We don't want that, so just going to throw that away, but make sure to try and get that out. really stuck on me. Before you start tying in the hair. So I'm going to grab a hold of the bottom part of the clump again. Just make sure I got it all nice and under control, like this. And from here, depending on how large I want the head, I can just measure with the tips of the deer hair. If I want a large head, I'm going to have the tips going back further. Or if I want a smaller head, I can have the tips closer to the hook eye. So I want something in the middle right here. So I'm going to grab hold of the tips again. Do 1 wrap, 2 wraps. Let go. This time I'm going to let it spin. What I do to make sure the hook doesn't wobble around, even though this is a very strong and sturdy hook. This is an Erex TP 615, so it's a long shanks, modern streamer trout hook. Just a little bit stability. So grab a hold there, and then I'm going to pull down and let it twist around the hook as I'm tightening it, and you will see what happens with the deer hair. It spreads all around. Keep applying pressure until you can't do it anymore and you're actually bending the hook. From here, what I will do is, I'm keeping the pressure with this hand now so I can point. I will walk the thread from the middle, right where the thread is now, in the middle of the clump, forward to the hook eye. And by doing that, I'm going to add strength to the head by actually having, see, a little bit more pressure, like that, and walk it forward. Keeping a lot of pressure here, so we get a head that won't spin on the hook. You can see somewhere in there is the hook eye. So you're going to have to use your fingers to kind of pull the hair back and wiggle through so we can finish it off. So I'm keeping the pressure all the time. A lot of thread pressure here. Then you can make 3 or 4 wraps. Actually, I didn't count, but a few wraps. Now you can let go. Now it's stuck on there. And from here, we're going to do a finish. You can do a half hitch or a few half hitches if you got a half hitch tool, or if you prefer to do it by hand. I will do a whip finish. And to get to the hook eye, you're going to have to pull it back at the same time, which is a little bit tricky, but I will try and show you. So you slide the hairs back like that and come in and do a whip finish. If you don't do the whip finish by hand, you can use a tool as well, but you will have to be a little bit crafty with your fingers to just pull it back. And since this is a slippery thread, it's very important that you make sure that you really tighten the knot. I haven't done it yet. So you're going to feel a small, like, almost, you feel the thread set as it slides in and almost disappears under the hair. So now we're ready to cut this. And the easiest way to cut these modern Dyneema or GSP threads is just with a razor blade or a very sharp scissors and just press like that. If you try to cut it with a scissor like this, since it's so slippery, it could easily just slide and just be a furry mess. So something like that. And what we're looking to do is get a somewhat broad profile, and what I'm going to be using is just a razor blade, and I'm going to be folding it like that to get a slightly dome-shaped top of the head. And I'm going to be starting by using the hook eye. You can see the flat hook eye there as a ruler. So I'm going to be placing that on a flat surface, the flat middle surface of the razor blade, and go backwards from there. So actually using the hook eye as the point of reference to know what's straight. Let's start something like that on the top. Switch to the bottom. And do the same thing, but on the bottom we'll be cutting a little bit closer to the actual hook. We always want a little bit less material on the bottom of our streamer flies. That's going to really help with getting proper tracking, so the fly won't twist if you're fishing in moving water. And then the sides, I will try and just basically, see those cut ends? I will try and shape that part and leave most of the pointy-ended hairs on the fly. So the angle will be outwards and around. And just very careful. Always cut a little bit less than you think you need, because you can't put it back. It's always good to take it a little step at a time. See, I'm working just back and forth carefully. We got a few. You can actually just, when there's just a few mixed in with the pointed end, you can actually just put your hand all over it and grab it, because the pointy-ended hairs will slip through your fingers and you can just pull the rest out. Make sure it's about the similar size on both sides. So something like that. I want that broad profile of the head. I think I'm going to cut a little bit more. But sometimes with their hair flies, since you can almost become a little bit crazy about cutting these, you have to just stop yourself and call it quits, call it done. So something like that, it's going to be fine. It's going to fish well, good profile. Maybe a cut or two here just to round it off. And this will be a very fishy little fly with some flash in it and that big broad profile head to make it look kind of like a sculpin or some other little fish that swims around water that the big fish eat. What I usually do to clean things up around here, around the hook eye, is just use one of these cauterizing tools. You don't need to do this, but you can. So I will show you how I do it. This has a little, like a metal string up here that gets really hot when you press the button, and you can use that to clean up. If you don't have one of these, don't stress out about it, or get one, because it's a really handy little tool. But what I'm looking to do here is just clean up just closest to the hook eye, for two reasons. One, it's easier to get the leader into the eye of the hook as you're fishing, and two, it looks better, at least to me. Use a large and very strong thread. Do clean out the underfur using a comb and your fingers, so you can tie in the hairs more easily. And also, about the thread, make sure to keep that thread pressure. Don't let go of the bobbin until you're all the way up at the hook eye and can place those wraps up there to lock in the thread tension. That is where a lot of people fail when tying with deer hair. Keep the pressure. That's very important. And also, have fun, play around with it. Good luck. I'll see you in the next part of this episode of Deer Hair Tying series.